The Mi 5 is barely 6 months old, but in China, Xiaomi has already launched a successor, the Mi 5S. Upgraded internals, a different build, improved optics, all while retaining the essence of the Mi 5. But is the Mi 5S a needed upgrade? Is this a phone worth considering? Well, that's what we aim to find out in this video. But before we get to that, if this is your first time here or in case you just can't remember, my name's Ash, this is C4E Tech and you're watching our full review of the Xiaomi Mi 5S. Let's get started. As always, let's start with the Buildin Design. Here's the Mi 5S side by side with the Xiaomi Mi 5. The Mi 5S at first glance looks quite similar, but look closer and you'd notice that quite a bit has changed. For starters, Xiaomi's removed the IR blaster, the Mi logo to the front's gone, and there's a minor cosmetic change with the sensor. The 4-megapixel large pixel camera, a 5.15-inch Full HD IPS LCD display, they remain unchanged, but there's no Gorilla Glass protecting this display this time though. To the bottom, the physical home key has been replaced by a capacitive key, kinda like the one that's found on the OnePlus 3, but the fingerprint tech underneath that has been replaced. It's now an ultrasonic fingerprint scanner. It's supposed to be more accurate and allow for the sensor to work through thin membranes, but that's not how it worked out for me. Yes, the scanner is faster, but I needed to press a little harder for it to recognize my fingerprint, and even then, sometimes it just didn't. If I didn't know the theory behind it, I'd have assumed that Xiaomi went with a cheaper sensor, cause sadly, theory and practicality aren't always the same, and while theoretically this is a better sensor, in real life usage it feels like a step backwards. Hopefully Xiaomi can fix it with updates. Anyway, to the back we now have metal instead of glass. The phone's also a millimeter thicker. That results in the camera being a little recessed and Xiaomi not needing to add a metal ring for protection. The dual tone dual LED flash also returns, but it's swapped to the left of the camera now. And since the back's made out of metal, antenna bands are present. Other changes to the build include the speaker holes at the bottom and the keys. Well, let me actually cut to my unboxing here. Now, they might not look very different, but they are kinda looser and make a bit of noise when you move your fingers across them. Here, listen to this. And this is not the case with the Mi 5 or even Redmi phones. While it didn't really irk me in the week that I used this phone as my primary, I still wish these keys weren't so loose. Anyway, the overall footprint's larger than that of the Xiaomi Mi 5. The Mi 5S is taller, wider and a good 1mm thicker. It's also about 15 grams heavier. To me, I'd say the build of the Mi 5S is good, but doesn't feel quite as premium as the build of the Mi 5. I suppose the 3D glass pack was more expensive to manufacture, and taking into account the negative publicity that Xiaomi got with regards to it being a little weak structurally, they went with metal here. That's just what I think happened. I don't have confirmation from Xiaomi on the same. Anyway, moving on. Underneath the hood, the Mi 5S is powered by the 64-bit quad-core Snapdragon 821 chip. This is the chip that has the same clock speed as the Snapdragon 820, but is supposed to be more power efficient. If it sounds familiar, it is the same chip that Google's using in the Pixel and Pixel XL. Anyway, the Mi 5S is available in 364 and 4128 RAM storage configurations. The 4128 variant also has support for Force Touch that Xiaomi, just like Apple, calls 3D Touch. With intensive usage scenarios like gaming, the Mi 5S had no issues running anything we threw at it with ease. The audio via the internal speaker was surprisingly loud. Weirdly, it was louder than the audio on the larger Mi 5S Plus. Audio via the 3.5mm headphone jack was decent too. As far as cellular reception and call quality goes, it was good, on par with other flagships, but given that I tested this out after testing the Mi 5S Plus out, I was a little bummed out because it wasn't exceptional. The Mi 5S Plus was exceptional. I have reception issues here, and the Mi 5S Plus was one of the few phones that still managed to get me coverage inside my office. The Mi 5S, like most other flagships, did not work great inside the office, but still, nothing to complain about. Anyway, moving on. All this is powered by a 3200 mAh battery that's 200 mAh more than what's found on the Mi 5. And given that the Mi 5S is using the power efficient variant of the Snapdragon 821 chip, I expected the battery life to be at least 10 to 20% better than that of the Mi 5. Sadly though, I was disappointed. Again, just because of my own expectations and not because of the actual performance. The battery lasted through a day of moderate usage quite easily. That's a few hours of calls, some streaming videos and casual games, Wi-Fi and 4G on all day, and oh yeah, GeoVolt works here. Push notifications, mail, social media, and with all these, it got me through a day on a single charge on each of the 7 days that I used this phone as my primary device, just like the Mi 5. And that is where I felt let down. The performance in theory should have been at least 10 to 20% better than that of the Mi 5, but it's about the same. Moving on, the Mi 5S now sports a lower resolution camera, 12 megapixels. This is a larger 1x2.3 inch sensor, Sony IMX378. If that sounds familiar, again, it's the same sensor that Google's using on the Pixels. The aperture is f2.0 and the pixel size is 1.55 microns, quite large. The Mi 5S though loses optical image stabilization. Under good light, this camera performs very well. Impressive pictures, lots of detail, excellent dynamic range. These were shot with auto HDR on. I left it on because it takes the same time as a regular shot. The shutter response was very quick. Under low light though, the ISO gets cranked up and that leads to a lot more noise. The images are still quite good, but much noisier. With videos, the Mi 5S can shoot 4K videos at 30 frames per second, but the lack of 4-axis OIS from the Mi 5 is most noticeable here. The software stabilization is visible, but the videos themselves are quite detailed, sharp, with natural colors and a good dynamic range. The 4 Ultra pixel camera has become Xiaomi's go-to for selfie cameras on their Mi range of smartphones, and it continues to impress here. And on that note, let's talk software. The Mi 5S runs on MIUI 8 built on top of Android 6 Marshmallow. MIUI 8 is a heavily skinned version of Android, comes without an app drawer, and Xiaomi's added a lot of features here. Here's a card to my video on the top features MIUI 8 brings to the table. The performance of MIUI here on the 5S is quite good. Not as good as it was on the 5S Plus. I don't really see why, but it does feel a tad slower. That said, you aren't gonna notice it unless you use both phones at the same time. With that, let's talk price. The 64GB variant of the Xiaomi Mi 5S is priced at 1999 yuan and the 128GB variant at 2299 yuan. That's about $290 or 20,000 Indian rupees and $335 or 23,000 Indian rupees respectively. The pricing's great, but I really am not sure why this phone exists. The performance, the battery, it's all on par with the top-end Mi 5, right? The fingerprint scanner is, well, worse. Gorilla Glass 4 and the IR Blaster are not present. The overall footprint is larger, so barring the improved camera sensor, the Mi 5S doesn't really have anything over the regular Mi 5. And even this is a half win of sorts, because I believe the Mi 5 does shoot better videos thanks to the 4-axis optical image stabilization. I feel the Mi 5S, just like the Redmi Pro or the Redmi Note 4, is a knee-jerk reaction from Xiaomi due to them losing ground to Vivo and Oppo in China. It seems like Xiaomi is going the Samsung route, throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. That's kinda sad. Anyway, if you do own a Mi 5, be happy with your purchase. The Mi 5S isn't so much as an upgrade as it is an alternative. To further drive this point home, imagine this for a minute. Let's assume that the Mi 5 got launched after the Mi 5S. So picture this, you go on stage talking about how they refined the build, made the phone smaller, lighter, added 3D glass to the back, Gorilla Glass for protection, added megapixels to the camera, 4-axis optical image stabilization, how Xiaomi took people's feedback and went back to a physical home key and added an IR blaster. Just picture it. It's very possible, right? They could actually market the Mi 5 as a replacement or rather as an upgrade to the Mi 5S. They could easily do it, and that this argument, as exaggerated as it was, that kind of conveys the point here. The Mi 5S doesn't really feel premium enough or an upgrade enough to the Mi 5, and this is one of the first times I'm really not disappointed that they aren't bringing it to India. So anyway, that's just me. I'm very sure there's gonna be quite a few of you who have a different point of view to mine, because the build is entirely personal preference. I can't fault someone for liking the metal build more than glass, or preferring still images to video. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd really like to know. If you do want to pick a Mi 5S up, I will leave links in the description below. Use them if you want to help the channel out. So that's it for my 2 cents on the Mi 5S. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, vote it down if you didn't, and for more videos like this, hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already. Do this so that you get notified as soon as we have uploaded a new video. And thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, this is Ash here from C4E Tech, signing off. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye now.